3 after is the magic number. All right, let's get started. So the forms are supposed to, it was my understanding the forms were supposed to be live today. It looks like they bumped it to, let's see, because I have the page open. Let's see, July 24th. It should be today. They should be released to your car forms library today, but in the chance that they are not, I'll put the link in the chat box so that you guys have that link where you can go and access the forms. Several major changes, right? All in preparation for the settlement that's supposed to be solidified in August sometime. They're also expecting like a new law to pass at the end of the year that goes into effect in January. So just a few things to pay attention to. The forms that we covered over the past 36 hours or so, I did the training on Monday. If you were on it, is done. You guys were there. We had to answer questions. Then yesterday I went through and covered the rest of the forms on Facebook Lives inside of the Foxhole group. So if you want to catch those, you can. They were all recorded, so they're all going to get posted to the YouTube channel as well. And then this morning, all the forms that I covered on Monday, I also covered as lives in the Foxhole group and recorded those, mainly being so that you guys had access to the recordings right away, so you can search them all in that Foxhole group. And that way you don't have to wait for them to be edited and posted on YouTube, since all the forms are coming out today. I wanted to make sure I went through really thoroughly on these forms because of the changes that were made. So we covered the multiple listing service addendum. We covered the buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. The multiple listing service addendum is a new form. The BRBC was a revised form. The seller payment to buyer's broker, the SPBB form, was covered yesterday. That one also was revised. New form was the PSRA, the property showing and representation agreement. We also covered the changes that were made to the modification of terms for both the listing agreement and the buyer representation agreement, 2 separate forms. We covered the buyer financial and personal information, the buyer identification of preferences and priorities, and the buyer material issues for a specific property, all forms that had revisions. And then we also covered the cancellation of buyer representation, and the notice of broker involved properties. Again, both forms that just got revisions here in July. And then we additionally on Monday had covered, and then today again covered the residential listing agreement, which got a major overhaul. We covered the broker compensation agreement, the BCA form, and then the temporary forms, which is the modifications to the buyer representation and the listing agreement, as well as the open house notification and sign-in. Okay, so we covered all of those forms. You're like, Amy, that all is like gibberish. Let me summarize them for you. The residential listing agreement was edited into the grid format. It is now put in, come the new agreement, once the MLS updates and pulls out the compensation being shown in the MLS. That's when the new listing agreement's really going to come into play. After the settlement, there's not going to be any offer of cooperating broker compensation. Okay, so just get cooperating broker compensation out of your mindset. We're changing the way that we do business. We're changing the way that we do real estate. It's not that scary. It's just that we're going to negotiate it directly with on the buyer's behalf with the seller as part of the offer process. So either the buyer's going to pay our commission, we're going to negotiate it on the SPBB form, the seller's, why can't I think of what that form's called? SPBB, seller payment to buyer's broker form, or we're going to negotiate it as part of a closing cost seller concession to the buyer for their closing costs, because our commission is going to be considered part of their closing costs. So listing agreement only has compensation to the listing brokerage, as well as it's got a line for if the buyer becomes unrepresented. If the buyer does not have representation, how we're going to handle that. If they don't want to be represented by us. And then most of the grid, the rest of the grid is going to be the same. That's the major change there. Okay. Along with that listing agreement, we also have the BCA form, which is the broker compensation. Wait, no, it's BCA. broker compensation addendum, I think is what it's listed at. It's got two sections on it. The top section is the seller section with related to listings. The bottom section is the buyer section, or section 2. And then talks about all the different ways compensation can be handled in section 3. That's going to be attached to our listing agreements now. It's also going to be attached to our buyer representation agreements, and it just outlines to the buyers and the sellers how compensation is handled moving forward, and lets the buyers know how we might want to negotiate for their portion of the commission to be covered by the seller. It lets the seller know what they can expect as part of offers with people asking for compensation for the buyer representation. So we got that BCA form. We also have the MLS addendum that's going to be attached to all your listing agreements as well. So we've got changes to the RLA, we've got changes to the BCA, which is a fairly new form anyways. It came out in May. And then we have this MLS addendum, the multiple listing service addendum, that's part of every listing agreement. That one answers all of AJ's concerns that he had on Monday. It talks about, hey, seller, are you willing to offer some sort of concessions to the buyer to help them with the compensation that is going to be due to their agent? Yes or no, right? It's asking that question because part of it on the MLS now is the MLS is going to have that option to ask if concessions are available or not. It's not going to ask if cooperating compensation is available because it's not any longer, right? So it's just asking if those concessions are available to help with that commission ultimately, or buyer's closing costs. It also covers the on-market date or the exclusion from the listing service. It includes whether or not we're going to do the address onto the internet, full or partial, right? That question came up. So it covers all of those items in that multiple listing service addendum. Again, we covered all of these forms over the last 48 hours, 36 hours. So you can go back onto the Foxhole group to watch those, or again, they'll be posted on the YouTube channel if you're feeling a little lost right now. Okay, so that's for the seller side. For the buyer side, the BRBC, the Buyer Representation and Broker Compensation Agreement, got completely overhauled and updated. They moved that one also to the grid format, so it looks more like our residential purchase agreement or what the new listing agreement looks like. They also updated the seller's payment to buyer's broker, the SPBB form. And again, that BCA form, the broker compensation addendum, that one's going to be attached to that buyer representation agreement. With the buyer representation agreement, they're also eliminating the ABCD form, I think. They're eliminating that because that talks about cooperating broker compensation. It seems like it would be advantageous for them to come out with a summary form of third-party commission sources in case there are some third-party commission sources, but they're eliminating that ABCD form, I think, as well. So the ways that you would negotiate commission with the BRBC, you're going to make sure to put your compensation that's going to be due to you by the buyer on that BRBC form to make it valid. The major change there, besides just the format being changed, is that they've eliminated on the existing BRBC, it had, if we asked for X commission, but third parties were paying more than that, what happens with the overage? And it defaulted that it went to us as the agent. So a lot of times we were putting like our minimum required commission on there, what we are minimally willing to work for on that BRBC. But now on the new BRBC, there is no excess. Whatever we put on that form is the most that we can obtain on the buyer from the buyer for helping facilitate the purchase. So make sure you put something on there that you're comfortable with getting paid, because that is what you're going to get paid for that transaction. You can always adjust it based on what's negotiated as part of the offer. Okay, due to requirements and rules and regulations, I can't use specific percentages as examples, but I could say, let's say on your BRBC, you put X percent, and you wrote up the SPBB with X% on it, negotiating that with the seller countered and said, hey, we're willing to offer Y. If you're like, okay, well, I'm good with that. Buyer doesn't have any money, or I don't want the buyer to come out of pocket. I'm happy with what the seller's offering as part of that counter offer. You can go back and do a modification of terms of that buyer representation agreement to make those commissions match. So just kind of heads up on that, but you would need to do a modification if you tried to negotiate more, and you actually can't even try to negotiate more on an SPBB form. So just a heads up there, you want to make sure you put on that BRBC what you would like to receive for representing the buyer, what your services are worth. Okay. There's a question from Rebecca on, will we have to fill out these forms for current listings we have? No, Rebecca, absolutely not, because we also covered today and on Monday, we covered the DM forms, which are the modification of the listing agreement and the modification of the buyer representation agreement. So come August, when the MLS makes the changes, is the latest point at which you're going to need to do this. Any existing buyers that already have buyer representation agreements signed, already have BRBCs in place, they will need to sign the DMBR form, which is the modification of the buyer representation form, just stating that, hey, things changed. We have an agreement in place already, but in that agreement, it talks about excess commissions if received, and we're just going to agree there's not going to be any excess commissions moving forward. So that's mentioned there on the listing agreement, the DM. If you have a listing agreement in place with a property that's not in contract when all the changes go into effect, so not in contract. If it were me, I would have my listings go ahead and sign all this form immediately. I'd start having these conversations with my sellers, and it just talks about the fact that, hey, at some point here in the next month or so, the MLS is going to change, and we're no longer going to be able to offer cooperating broker compensation to the buyer's agent. So the buyer's agent may try to negotiate their commission being covered instead of the cooperating. In our listing agreement, we said it was going to be X% commission, and of that, Y% was going to the buyer's agent. With the changes in the MLS and the NAR settlement, we're no longer going to have that cooperating broker compensation, but a lot of our buyers still don't have funds in order to pay the agent to represent them. We still want them to buy your house, and they're going to, when that change happens, there may be other ways in which the buyer's agent tries to negotiate that portion of the commission. It's going to be in the form of that SPBB form or seller concessions, and we're going to agree that my commission is going to be reduced by what we were offering the cooperating broker compensation. So if I was asking for X and we were offering Y, but now the commission is going to be X minus Y. That's going to be our new commission moving forward from this date on. So that is what the summary of that modification of the listing agreement. So again, that's the DMLA form that'll need to be for any old listing agreements. And we've got our DMBR, and that'll be for any old buyer representation agreements. If you already have transactions in contract, you're a listing agent, you've got a transaction in contract, or you're a buyer's agent and you have something in contract, I would absolutely immediately send over the cooperating broker compensation, the confirmation of cooperating broker compensation form. I think it's called the CBC form. You may have to search for it, though, if that's not the name of it. And just confirm the amount of commission that was being offered in the MLS so that you have signatures on it that, yes, the listing agent is on board. We're all on board with this was what was offered and this was what was committed to, just so that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. So in that BRBC, the SPBB was changed. We talked about the DM forms. We talked about the BCA form, the broker compensation agreement form. There was also modification of terms were just updated briefly, just so you know now. I think it came out last month. There's separate modification of terms for the buyer representation agreement and separate modification of terms for the listing agreement. You're gonna use those appropriately. FYI, the buyer representation agreement can't be longer than 90 days. Well, 3 months. It's 3 months. So if today is the 24th of July, the August, September, October 24th would be the longest that you could write a BRBC for on the new form. You can extend it with that modification of terms. You could do an extension as we get close to the expiration date. We can change that expiration date another 3 months, but we have to do 3 months at a time. You can't exceed that, otherwise it becomes null and void. And our listing agreements can't be longer than 24 months. So just a heads up on those two changes. Claudia asked if she has a listing appointment today, should she use the new one? Claudia, because the change in the MLS hasn't happened yet, I would probably still use the old form and include the DM-LA form with that, because of the fact that we're still offering cooperating broker compensation in the MLS. So I'd still have that conversation with the seller. I would still talk with them about the changes that are happening and how they want to handle those. And I'd probably still use the old listing agreement with that DM form attached to it today. You could use the new one. However, because the commissions are still being offered as cooperating in the MLS, we just need a way to handle that. So you just need to make sure that you have that conversation if we're going to use the new one. Let's see. The other form that is new is the PSRA form, which is the, hold on, property showing and representation agreement. It's like a temporary buyer representation agreement. I've got a moth that just attacked me. So it's a temporary BRBC, basically. It's only valid for up to 3 properties and no more than 30 days. So that would be for like your cold market leads. Maybe you've got a sign call that's like, hey, can you show me the house that you have listed? Or you've got somebody in an open house that's like, man, this isn't the right fit, but I'd like to go see a couple others. Can you show me those others that you said were available later today? Or maybe you've got your Zillow client and they called and you just set an appointment to go meet them at the property without doing a buyer consultation calls. We do oftentimes with those Zillow clients. The PSRA would be a great form to utilize because it limits that representation to just a temporary period. So it makes it a little less formal for those that we don't have relationships with yet, and we're not even sure we really even want to work with them. So we can use that PSRA, the property showing and representation agreement. Again, it's only good for up to 3 properties and a max of 30 days. With the BRBC form, the buyer representation and broker compensation form, there are some forms that are associated with that. One is the buyer financial and personal information. We're going to utilize that form. I would use it with every buyer. It's going to allow you to collect information as to where are the funds coming from for your down payment, where are the funds coming from for your deposit, what's the max payment that you want, what additional funds, do you have additional funds to pay for closing costs and the commission to me for representing you. So ask those types of questions. I think it's a great form to include every time you do a BRBC because it gives you pertinent information. And ultimately, if the buyer's going to potentially be responsible for our commission, we want to make sure they're financially able to cover that. And not that I just spent 3 months working with somebody showing properties that now says, oh, well, I don't have the funds if the seller doesn't pay for that. I want to know going into it that that's the case. So you've got that buyer financial and personal information form, the BFPI. There's also a buyer identification of preferences and priorities. That's also a good form. It causes the buyer to think about what do they want in a property, what price range, what bedroom, bathroom count, what other things are important to me in the property, right? All of those things are part of that BIPP, the buyer identification of preferences and priorities. I would absolutely have my buyers fill that out as well. Michelle, the financial form is separate from the BRBC form. So it's addition to the BRBC. And the BRBC now is only like, I don't remember how many pages, but it's not 13. Well, including the additional documents, right? We've got the agency disclosure and the possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. So yes, it would be in addition to that, both the BFPI and the BIPP. Okay, so the buyer financial and personal information and the buyer identification of preferences and priorities, that has to do with what they are wanting in a property. It allows us to identify their whys as well. It's got some really good questions on that form. Buyer material issues for a specific property is also another form that got some edits done to it. It's one that's been around for a really long time that nobody's ever looked at or seen. But it's got a different, it's a BMI-SP now because it's specific property. What I would do is anytime I put a buyer in contract on a property, they would get a copy of this form in printed format from me, so that if they have any issues, they could fill it out and return it to me at any time. That buyer material issues for a specific property says, hey, we're in contract to buy this property. Here are the things that I have questions for the seller on, or here are my concerns with regards to this property. It gives them a place to express those concerns. It talks about it in the BRBC. So I think it's probably one of those that we need to initiate as part of our regular systems and processes every time we put somebody in contract, same as we would like a buyer inspection election form. Same idea, just, hey, here's this form. If you have any concerns, feel free to fill this out at any time, get it back to me. This will allow me to pass your direct questions and concerns on to the seller to make sure that we get those addressed in a timely fashion and in a way that is appropriate for answering your concerns, instead of me trying to interpret what their concerns are to the other party. So that's the BMI form. The other forms that are attached to that buyer representation form are the COBRA form, the cancellation of buyer representation, and the notice of involved broker properties. So in the BRBC, it talks about that there's like a period. If we check the box for exclusive buyer representation, if a buyer submits a cancellation to me, it extends another 30 days. If during that 30-day period, any properties that I did were broker involved properties that I did work for them or showed them, if they decide to make an offer on one of those properties, I'm still due a commission on those properties, but I have to submit them the list of properties. So there's that cancellation of buyer representation and then the notice of broker involved properties. Okay, on the new BRBC, anybody can cancel at any time. Okay, it's a unilateral cancellation, which means the buyer can decide they no longer want to work with me. They just submit to me a cancellation. And then depending on how I filled out the BRBC is when the cancellation is effective. It's no longer mutual cancellation. So just kind of keep that in mind. I can also cancel on them if I'm tired of working with them. Yes, absolutely, Maciel. I would say use the PSRA for your initial meeting with those Zillow clients. Once you have a relationship with them, I would transition them over to the BRBC. But for those initial couple properties or initial property that you're showing them, I would absolutely use that PSRA form. All right. The only other form that I haven't covered yet is the OHNA-SI, which is the open house form notification, open house. I don't remember what the whole name of it is. Sorry, but it's for open houses, because this goes into effect that anytime before we show buyer a property, we have to have a representation agreement in place, right? Open houses are showing properties. However, we don't represent all of those people walking through the door on an open house. So there's a new notice that you have to have at your open houses come August that outlines, hey, you're walking through this property. I don't represent you. Everything you say could get communicated back to the seller, because ultimately I'm working on behalf of the seller right now, not for you. And if you want to make an offer on a property, we have to decide whether you're going to be represented or whether it's going to be an unrepresented buyer situation, or if you want to sign a buyer agreement with me to represent you in writing that offer. So, and then it's got a place for them to put their name, email, phone number, and the agent that represents them, if there is any. So that's the last form, and I would say utilize that one. I would say start using it today. It gives you an excuse to make every single person sign into your open house. That isn't just, hey, for the safety and security of the property, but now it's, oh, we're required for you to do this, or you can't actually see the property due to the NAR settlement. Sorry. And I would have a separate sheet per party that walks through. Everybody in the party should put their names on there.
Those are basically
a summary of the forms. What other questions do we have?
So that one for the open house, that's basically like your sign-in sheet then, right? Because now they have to sign in and it's not like you're asking them for anything else besides this is a requirement.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want to use a separate, like if you use a digital sign in to your open houses, that's fine too. You just may want to tweak it so that it includes that verbiage from that form on your digital sign in as well. And maybe a place for additional visitors where they could fill in the names of other people in their party. What other questions? So many forms changes. The industry is changing. I know it seems a little scary. There's a lot of apprehension attached with this, but ultimately I think it's going to be good for all parties. And think of it this way too. This means with every single buyer, you're not just at the liberty of what's being offered as a cooperating broker compensation. Just like with a listing, I now get to negotiate my value with my buyers and collect what I'm worth instead of what somebody wants to offer me. So it's really a good change overall. But it is a change and it's a big change. So it's just going to take some time to get used to.
Amy, I got one quick question
Yeah.
regarding the open house form. If what I've seen is that agents will come with their clients, but then they put their name on the form instead of like the client's name. Say they come in with 3 or 4 people.
Yep.
And they just put the agent's name. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So now obviously because they should have a representation agreement in place already, and now I'm not showing them the property, they're showing the property to their clients. They can absolutely just sign in with their name. You may want to ask them to go ahead and put their buyers' names on there just so you have record of buyers, because per the listing agreement and the continuation period, we do need proof of everybody who saw the property during our listing period in order to hold them accountable for paying us a commission after the expiration or cancellation of that listing agreement. So you may ask the agent to put their contact information down, but to also list who their buyers are that they're showing the property to, just so you have record of it, but not required.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question.
Yeah.
So when you have the conversation with your buyers about being paid, if the other side is not paying, I guess like let's say they found a house and we contacted the seller or the listing agent and they're like, yeah, we're not doing any commission on this one, or like 1% commission or something like that. So then how would you have the conversation with your buyer about the extra portion of what you would want to get paid? Like, let's say you wanted 2.5% and the seller's only offering 1%. Can you tell us how you would start the conversation with them about how much you charge for your services?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what they would pay?
So number one, we should already have had this conversation with them when we filled out the BRBC, because the buyer representation agreement now needs to be filled out and signed prior to going and showing properties, or at least it will become August. So we should have already had a conversation of, here's the different ways that compensation happens in the real estate market, but ultimately you're going to be responsible for it. The fee that I charge is X%. Okay, sometimes what we'll try to do is negotiate that with the seller directly, or we can negotiate it as like a closing cost credit. And if the seller's unwilling to pay, the responsibility to pay my commission is going to fall on you. So I just want to let you know that up front, that that's going to be part of your closing cost to the transaction. And then you're going to have that conversation with them there. So you're going to know, and they're like, man, yeah, money is really tight and I don't really, you know, I barely have enough money for the down payment and the closing costs. Like now we're adding additional funds and I'm not sure I've got funds to cover that. Then there's actually a place on the BRBC for you to mark that now, that either the buyer doesn't have sufficient funds in order to pay a commission, or their lender won't allow the buyer to pay the commission if it's a loan that doesn't allow that. So there's a place on the BRBC form for that. And then at that point, you have to go into it knowing that, hey, my commission's X, my buyer can only pay Y or not anything at all. Am I still willing to represent this buyer moving forward if I know that the minimum that I'm going to get is this? If I can't negotiate with the seller to get commission or to get paid from the seller or to get closing costs for the buyer covered, am I going to be okay with receiving this amount of money representing this buyer? And it may make choices on who we choose to spend our time with and who we choose not to spend our time with. But we should have that conversation up front so we know what to expect.
Do we have any update for VA? I mean, these are going into effect soon, and I feel like we still haven't gotten any indication of, of how we're going to represent veterans if the seller's not offering compensation.
I believe that the VA is revamping to allow the buyer to pay for their commissions. That's what I've heard. I haven't confirmed that with any lenders. But I think they're at least working on it if it's not already in effect. So stay tuned for that one. That would be a good question to ask our in-house lender, how that's moving along. All right. How's everybody feeling about the changes? Are we all feeling good about it? Are we feeling nervous?
I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
so you have a list. So I have a listing appointment today, right? And we're actually not going to hit the market for at least another 2 to 3 months anyway. So
Okay.
I would like to use the new form
Use the one.
and the, it's not going to be in the MLS anyway. So I still have the discussion, but then later on, that's when I guess
Yeah, if you're not going to hit the market until after like mid-August, I would just use the new listing agreement and let them know what the changes are and what to expect and how that's going to be handled moving forward. Absolutely.
So it would just be the new listing agreement, and then the you were saying the MLSA, and that's it today.
Yep.
Perfect.
And you're going to have the MLSA and the BCA, but the MLSA and the BCA should both already be attached to that new listing agreement. I haven't looked in the car forms library, but it should already be attached.
I think it is, but I'm going to check again.
Daniel says he's feeling nervous and anxious. He knows he'll get through it, but that's how I feel. I think that's normal right now, Daniel. I think with any major change, especially the way we've done business for years and years, like it does make us nervous and anxious, and it's just seeing how it's going to play out. I think ultimately it's going to be okay. I think, as Ed said on Monday, we're going to end up seeing some agents leave the industry over this because there's some people that just don't handle change very well. But I think we're going to continue on business as usual. I think for the most part, I think our sellers are going to realize that it's still in their best interest to offer concessions to help cover the buyer's agent's commission because it opens up their pool of buyers a little bigger. But there will be changes, and I think there's going to be some pain associated with it in the meantime. And I think, we're offering trainings and talking about it. And I think there's other offices that aren't offering trainings and talking about it. So we're going to have agents that come in mid-August and be like, what are you offering for cooperating broker compensation? You're gonna be like, I'm not. Like, we're not allowed to offer that anymore. And they're gonna be like, yeah, we are. And we're like, no, we're not. Like, you can negotiate your commission as part of the offer. Yes, my seller is willing to offer some compensation to you, but you need to do it on an SPBB form or part of seller concessions. And they're going to be like, SPBB, what's that? Right? Like, you have offices or agents that just aren't plugged in and aren't going through trainings, and it's going to be us helping to teach them the appropriate way to do business going forward.
I know you just said this, but if, like Claudia said, she has a listing appointment, but it's not going live until, a few months. So have the regular one signed, because I don't think the new one's out yet, or it might be today.
It's supposed to be today.
Okay. But use what form? The broker, the BCA, the broker compensation form?
Yeah, so the BCA should be attached to both listing agreements at this point, the old one and the new one, whichever one's in your car forms library. The MLSA form, the multiple listing service addendum, is the new one that should be attached to the new listing agreement automatically. But if it's not, you absolutely want it in there because it's kind of like an addition to that listing agreement. If the new listing agreement isn't out, you're heading to a listing appointment today and it hasn't yet hit your CarForms library, then you're gonna want to use the old listing agreement, and you'll want to pull up, if it's in there, the DM-LA, which is the modification to the listing agreement. Oh, perfect. Claudia says both are in the new RLA. Claudia, the new listing agreement is in the CarForms library then?
Yes, I pulled it up.
Yeah.
It has the multiple listing service addendum thing. Sorry, I'm like scrolling back up to make
You're
sure.
good. And the BCA.
Multiple listing service addendum, and then the BC, the broker compensation advisory is
Okay.
in all the other good stuff.
So
Perfect.
those are in the RLA?
Yep.
Yes, it's attached all in one packet. Like when you add it, it's all in there.
It's all in there with your PRBS and your wire fraud and your agency disclosure and your sorry.
And the reason why I'm asking is because I had, what day is today? Wednesday. On Monday, I had the old RLA signed. So,
Okay.
but we're not planning on hitting the market till possibly like a month.
That's
from
fine. I would just have them as it gets a little closer, maybe the beginning of August or even before then, it really doesn't matter, but have them sign that DM-LA.
Okay.
That's all they would need to sign if they've got an old listing agreement in place.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And yes, Danielle, I will keep my phone close. Me and Ed.
That's
and
funny. I just had to say that because you helped me out in that situation last month
yeah,
with the BRBC. So
I am always available to help answer questions for you guys as you start navigating these new forms. So are Ed and Kara. So feel free to reach out to any of us as this unravels and everything's going on and you want clarification on what you need to utilize. Feel free to reach out. All right. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yes, just to clarify again, because we do MetroList and we do Berries, right?
Uh-huh.
So on the new form, the MLSA,
Uh-huh.
if the listing is in the Berries area, we are not a part of the clear cooperation policy. It does not apply, correct?
Correct, in Berries. So in those 5 counties that are covered in the main Berries service area, so it'd be Mendocino, Marin, Solano, Sonoma, and Napa counties. So if you have a listing in those 5 counties on the MLSA, you would check the box for, I think it's F, for clear cooperation policy does not apply.
And still do the SELM through the,
Yep.
the association.
Yeah, still do the SELM because it's still required if you're not going to input it into the MLS right away.
Sweet, thank you.
So repeat that again, please.
Yeah, so if your listing is going to be in the Berries main service area, because obviously if you open up Berries right now, you can search, 9 different counties or whatever it is. I think it's more than that. But if it's in the main service area of Berries, so you've got Marin, Mendocino, Solano, Napa, and Sonoma counties. The Berries does not adhere to the clear cooperation policy set forth by the National Association of Realtors, which means that we can market our properties to the public without them being in the MLS. Okay, if the property's in Winters or Davis or Sacramento, you can't market the property to the public until 24 hours before you're live in the MLS. Okay, so once you start marketing that property to the public outside of the 5 Berries service counties, it has to be in the MLS within 24 hours or you're in violation of the rules of that MLS. Berries doesn't adhere to that. So on the MLSA, the new multiple listing service addendum form that just got released, There's a box on there. It used to be on the listing agreement. Now it's on that MLSA form where you check that the clear cooperation policy does not apply. And that means that we can market it to the public. We can put a coming soon sign in the yard. We can send out coming soon postcards. We can post it on social media, right? We can have pocket listings that aren't in the MLS that we're talking to people about. We still have to do a SELM form, the seller exclusion from the multiple listing service form. We still have to have them fill that out, which talks about when it's actually going to go into the MLS. And we have to fill out the exclusion form on Barry's itself. There's a link on the main page of Barry's. So we still need to do all of that stuff, but we can market the property to the public. Now in the Yolo, Sacramento, all those other counties that aren't covered under Barry's, we can market it inside our office. So you can post it in the foxhole. You can announce it at our team meeting. You can let other agents in our office know about that listing because ultimately the listing agreement's with the brokerage. So all the agents in the office can know about that listing, and all the agents in our office can talk specifically to their own clients about that listing. But we can't post it on social media or put a kind of soon sign in the yard or send out those postcards or whatever to people that aren't our clients.
Okay, I think I got it because I have a listing appointment and it's going to be for Sacramento. And we're talking about going live around 21st of August. So really, I can't do nothing other than advertise it to our office.
To our office prior to the 20th of August. On the 20th of August, you can have where those postcards hit somebody's mailbox. You can start promoting it on social media. You can have that sign go up in the yard as long as you're going to be in the MLS ready for showings on the 21st. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Do you know why they do that? Why like Metro List does that?
So it's actually nationwide. It's a National Association of Realtors objectives that got sent down, that if we're agents and we're marketing properties, it should be open and fair for everybody to be able to see and access the information for those properties that are for sale. So that's kind of the basis behind the clear cooperation policy, that once we have a property, we're marketing it to the public, it should be available for any buyers to be able to see the property and put offers on that property. Barry's is owned differently than the other MLSs, the way that their ownership is handled. And so it doesn't fall under all of the NAR guidelines. And so they've chosen not to adopt the clear cooperation policy, and they weren't forced to because of the way the ownership is of Barry's.
I have another question.
No, you've exceeded your questions
As
for the
far
I'm joking. I'm joking.
as if we wanted to book a like on showing time, I've had this issue with I'm on Barry's. I'm trying to book a showing time, but it's on the Metro List side and it doesn't allow me. It says like there's like an issue. So do we have to like if we co-op with them, we should be able to access their site, or through Barry's, do we have access to that? Because I've had that issue where for months now that every time I try to book something on showing time for properties on that side, that I'm not able to book on showing time.
I thought they had fixed it previously, but it may be that you have to log into showing time separate from Barry's, not from inside of Barry's, and it may give you access to book those because, you know, really any property that's available on showing time, you should be able to go in there and book it. It just may not automatically link it from Barry's.
I've done it both ways and it still doesn't work.
I have no idea then. If
Okay.
is the property instructing you to book it on showing time?
Yeah, it'll say book through showing time. And then I tried doing it through the actual listing. It doesn't work. Then I actually just do it from the showing time app itself and it doesn't work either. It says it won't find the property. And then I've called also and then they're like, we can't find that listing. So then I have to just message the agent.
I had something similar like that happen to me. And when it happened, I had to go in through the Metro. and book it.
Which if you don't have access to Metro, then you can't do that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that solution for you, Maciel, because if you don't have like full access through like Prospector to get into MetroList, then it may not work. But ultimately you should be able to set up any properties regardless of where they're at. I was just gonna say maybe the agent hadn't set it up, but you know, I guess push comes to shove, you just have to message the agent, let them know that showing time isn't cooperating and finding the property for you.
Yeah. So then I went to like MLS, but I don't know if it was the actual, right? Like I went to MetroList MLS.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the one, but it, you know, I created my login and everything and I still wasn't able to find anything.
Yeah, to log in the MetroList, it would need to be Prospector, and you have to have full access in order to log into the agent side of not just co-opt, but actually like pay for the full membership of MetroList to log into Prospector.
Got it.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to play around with that and see if I can help you figure out a workaround.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, we do have training tomorrow at 11 o'clock. It's the same link. It's our summer tech series. I don't know what it's on. So I apologize for that. I don't know what I'm teaching tomorrow. But I'll be on at 11 to teach you tech related stuff.
Canva.
Canva. I love Canva. Oh, like
Good.
Let's-
I need to learn about Canva.
you need to learn about Canva. I will teach you all about Canva tomorrow. It'll be fun. And yeah, tomorrow at
Our
11 o'clock, same link. What?
Our network has the link to that one. They gave us the password, but I still cannot. So I will learn it tomorrow.
You will learn tomorrow. It's a free, you can create yourself a free login to Canva. For most things on there, it's free. So I'll just show you how to navigate, create stuff. And you can actually now Canva lets you even like print t-shirts and for sale signs and all sorts of things. You can send out mailers through Canva. So you can't just, it's not just like social media things anymore. You can do so much in Canva. It's magic. It's magic. So Canva training tomorrow, 10 a.m. Same link that you're on right now on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
Fabulous. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for hopping on today. I hope you guys got some clarity. All of these videos, all these forms are covered. They're all in the Foxhole on live trainings that I did yesterday and today. The ones that I did Monday, I repeated those today on live training so that you guys would have access to them right away in case you have questions or want a deeper understanding of all the changes that happened on the forms. But thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Amy, I'm going to call you in a second, so it'll be by your phone, por favor.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You have a
Absolutely.
second?
See you tomorrow.